Welcome to the Pixie Dust podcast. My name is Ashwini and I am your host. The goal of this podcast is to inspire the next generation of founders. Today we're joined by my friend Chloe. Chloe is the founder of the Passages Project, a media project amplifying stories and actionable personal development resources for and by young professionals. As a former TEDx organizer, Chloe started the project and subsequent podcast, Passages, out of her passion to empower young, ambitious millennials and the entrepreneurially minded through storytelling and digital media. In addition to her side hustles as a coach, podcast host, and photographer, Chloe works as a corporate communication specialist in the Bay Area. I'm so excited to share our conversation with you guys today. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's episode. I'm here with Chloe, founder of the Passages Project. I'm so excited to have you here, Chloe. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hello. I am so excited to be on your podcast. This is surreal. So I'm Chloe. I live and work in San Francisco, where I moved to basically chase my dreams, live that young professional experience, and move outside my comfort zone now almost exactly a year ago. Was born and raised in kind of small town and knew from a pretty early age that I had this entrepreneurial bug and was really interested in different creative projects, creative interests. Ended up graduating from Georgia Tech with a degree, a very interdisciplinary combination of things that I studied, including computing, design, psychology, marketing. And now I work for a technology company full-time in public relations and communications. And on the side, I'm building the Passages Project, which is a media project amplifying stories and experiential advice for young professionals. And I'm the host of the Passages podcast.
So what inspired you to start the Passages Project?
Oh my gosh, how much time do we have?
We have all the time in the world. Tell us every little detail. We want to know the whole process.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I would say Passages actually happened pretty fast. It was definitely a project, literal project that I started quite spontaneously, quite impulsively, which is not me. I'm a perfectionist through and through. I have probably 17,000 Google Docs of different business ideas and brand ideas. I like to kind of noodle on ideas before I really leap into them. But how Passages came to be was quarantine, COVID, everything that we're all experiencing was happening. And there was actually a really influential post that I saw on LinkedIn, which I don't know that I've actually shared this story before, but there was a story that I saw, a post that I saw on LinkedIn from somebody in my network, basically saying like, it's come to my attention that many young professionals, people that had internships or experiences are now seeing those experiences canceled because of COVID. If you need any help with anything, if you would like to connect with anybody in my network, please reach out. I'm happy to help. I can't imagine. I'm here. I was really inspired by that post and I shared the same one. I physically copied the post and shared it on my LinkedIn. And when I did that, I actually received several responses. I wasn't really expecting much, but several people that I was connected with back from college reached out, really, really smart women, driven people that I know in my life, reached out from this place of, honestly, like sorrow, like brokenhearted. I saw your post. I'm actually really struggling. I never expected that I would be in this place. I feel like my career is just thrown out the window. Like this, I worked so hard for this. I don't know if you have any advice for me, but I look up to you. I see that you've kind of, quote, chased your dreams or it's worked out for you. I feel like you'd have really good advice. Do you have anything to share with me? And I was like, do I? I got so, my heart broke at the same time that I had this fire lit up inside of me. And I was like, heck yes, I do. I'm no expert, but if I can find a way to kind of funnel information that I've gathered from my own experiences or connect people that I know in my life to these people that are hurting, I can do that. I'm capable of that. So I just started thinking and journaling and kind of just over, honestly, a very short amount of time, like a few days, I just started kind of like thinking about what could I do? I'm not on the front lines of this traumatic experience. Like I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I don't feel qualified or equipped to help people right now, but I have a lot of passion for media, communications, design, brand strategy, all these other things. And I was like, what if I can combine what I like and what I like to think that I'm good at with what people really, really need and this problem that I really, really care about. And I think what really set things in motion was all of a sudden I had literal people in the back of my mind that I was like, I'm doing this for you. Like these people that have reached out to me on LinkedIn, like even if this only connects with you, I have done the work. And so I landed on a podcast because I thought about my options were like a blog, but I thought a blog felt too quiet, like to just kind of read and write words. I was like, sometimes you really got to hear people's emotion when they're telling their stories. And then I thought about going on like Instagram Live, like just kind of hosting people on my Instagram. But I was finding that even though so many people were going on Instagram Live, I didn't even feel inclined to listen to them. Like I didn't feel like being on my phone for that amount of time watching an Instagram Live. So I was like, if I hate Instagram Lives, I'm not to go do that. And to me, what made the most sense was a podcast. And it honestly, the rest is history. I just decided like, okay, I'm going to do a podcast. It's going to be for young professionals. Came up with the name through, again, just kind of a series of like, let me just think on this. Let me run a bunch of words on a page and kind of let my imagination go. And through seeing synonyms of different words and kind of that creative process, I came across the word passage and it just hit me. I was like, passages they're both a bridge, a path, a place that you have to walk through to get from point A to point B, to get from here to there. A short journey, not the full journey, a short little snippet of the journey. It's also like this quote or an excerpt or those pieces of stories that your friends just want to read out loud to you, or the ones that you have to just like screenshot and share with everybody. I mean, the best parts of the stories that you just have to tell. And I was like, if that doesn't sum up the young professional experience, I don't know what does. So we're going to run with it and launch from there.
So the Passages Project has how many episodes now? You've been doing it for a couple months now. I think you post every week, right?
Yes. So I basically was trying to keep my own self accountable. And I was like, if I can do this on a weekly basis, I really will have something up my sleeve. It'll give me something to do. It'll keep me motivated. So yes, weekly episodes. And the Passages Project ended up being an extension of that podcast brand. And so as I was doing the podcast, I always wanted to kind of make it bigger than just a podcast, but I knew if I thought about the facts that I would at the very beginning, it would really hinder my creativity. It would put a lot of responsibility on my shoulders that I need to build something massive right now. I mean, it was just me, like at my childhood home, like on my laptop. Like I was like, I cannot think about building a massive brand right now, but I can think about building one podcast, like one episode a week. So the Passages Project is essentially the name for this extension of the podcast brand. I'm in the middle of launching a website, a source for you to read and write and share your different stories and experiences. We're working on social media and trying to kind of leverage that platform and leverage that medium for everything that it offers, and continuing the podcast.
So how big is the Passages team now? You say we. I thought it was just you.
So yeah, it's so funny. I think I grew so fast and I wanted to work with people so desperately that at the second people said that they were interested in being a part of this, I was like, come on. Like, I don't even know what I'm going to have for you to do, but the more the merrier. It was when I came back, so I was quarantined at my family home for several months when everything was first starting. And then I moved back out to San Francisco, moved into a new apartment, felt like, okay, new chapter, new everything. But I was continuing Passages. I mean, it was something that I had started when I had nothing to do at home. And now all of a sudden there was a lot to do. It was a new city to explore. I was kind of back. And it was a combination of like, I would love to have more time to just keep this sustainable. I don't believe in hustle for the sake of hustle. So I was like, I love this. I want to be able to work on this, but I don't think that it's worth me neglecting my relationships, neglecting my mental health, neglecting exercise and well-being and sleep in order to build this. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. So I basically posted on LinkedIn, like, I think I'm hiring. If you want to work with me, like, let me know. I'm kind of just looking for help for anybody that's interested in this. If you are looking for an internship, if you've had an internship lost, that was another thing. All of a sudden, it was this really literal way to give back to the very people that had reached out to me in the early days. And I had so many people reach out that I ended up hiring, if you will, 4 people. And I was anticipating just one, just kind of summer intern. And now it's more of a team. So it's going to be interesting to see how it evolves and what ends up happening. But so far, it's just this really driven, incredible group of friends of mine and interns that have joined me along the ride to basically launch and build the Passages project. And we're going to kind of see what happens.
So let's rewind. I want to know, how many episodes did you record before you actually went live with the podcast? And how many people did you interview before you figured out the format that the podcast would follow?
Oh, man. So I, yeah, if you're thinking about doing a podcast, this is probably my number one piece of advice, is to figure out that you can do the thing and you like doing the thing before you tell people that you're doing the thing. I, coming from a marketing background and feeling so passionate about brand strategy and communications, whenever I would launch another project, which is why none of them have lasted, I would jump straight to, like, how am I going to market this? What is the brand going to be about? Like, what's the fun stuff? What's the logo? Like, all of that stuff. And I wouldn't move the needle on building the actual thing, like solving the actual problem. I do believe in branding and communications and marketing strategy. I don't think that it needs to be an afterthought, but I think it should be a later step in your launch or in your process. So to answer your question, I was like, when I decided that I was going to do a podcast, the first thing I did, I was on a walk, I remember, and I voice texted a good friend of mine who I was like, if there's going to be anybody that needs to come on the podcast, it's her, like, just the epitome of, like, who I want to talk to and who would have advice to share this podcast. I voice messaged her and I was like, A, I'm thinking about doing a podcast. Is that too ambitious? B, would you want to come on it if I did? And it was just this kind of, like, these silly questions and kind of, like, all of a sudden getting some skin in the game, like telling somebody else. It was my friend Haley. And she voice messaged me back and she was like, no, that's not ambitious. And duh, when are we recording? And so that kind of helped me, like, okay, like, this is a real thing. Like, I got somebody else involved. And I voice messaged 4 other people. And so before I even launched or told anybody, hey, Passages is happening, I gave myself a few weeks to prep those episodes. I always, from the beginning, I thought about, like, what's the goal of this episode? And I would prepare a lot of questions. I would run those questions by my guests. I mean, I literally was like, I want this to be as comprehensive as possible to just maximize our time together. So I would show up super prepared. I would record on a wobbling ottoman. I had stacked like 17 books with like this cheap microphone that I got on Amazon. Actually, the one I'm using today, but like decently affordable mic that I got on Amazon. It was like balanced on this wobbly thing. I would pull up Zoom and be like, well, I hope this works. I was like, hit record and hit publish and like film the whole thing and like see what happened after I closed the app and like what happens to the audio file? What do I do with that now? And then I would like go into GarageBand because that's the only thing I knew how to use. And I'd fiddle with it. And it took me so long. I remember to produce the first few episodes just because I had no idea what I was doing, but I gave myself that time. And then actually nobody really knows this either, but I had published the episodes weeks before I told people the podcast was out. So you actually like could have found them and could have listened to them before I even launched the podcast because I wanted to make sure I knew what I was doing. And then I canceled it and then I like deleted them and you couldn't tell anymore. And so I scheduled it. Like I wanted to test everything, test the whole system so that I knew I could trust myself that like when I told people this podcast was going to be on Spotify, that it would actually be on Spotify. So that was kind of a fun little secret. Yeah. So the podcast launched and I already had the next 5 weeks of episodes ready, scheduled. And then I just kind of focused on social media, on marketing, and on getting the next bit of guests.
Okay, so I know nothing about social media marketing at all. And I know you have the most beautiful Instagram. So can you help me? Like, what do you suggest I do to like either first figure out if I wanted to start a brand, or if one of our listeners wanted to start a brand, how do we go about doing that? Do you have any introductory advice there? And then how do you put together an Instagram marketing strategy or a social media marketing strategy? What does that mean?
Yeah. Oh my God, I'm getting so passionate about this. So the basics of like foundational principles of brand and marketing strategy is you need to care so deeply about who is on the other side of the screen. You need to know everything about them. What platforms are they on? Why? What brands do they connect with? Why? What are their problems? Why? What solutions do they gravitate towards? Why? So I answered all those questions for my own self. And I knew that my ideal persona is kind of what people call them in marketing and branding. Basically this like archetype of your ideal customer, listener, reader, whatever it is. You think about them in the back of your mind, you have all of those ideas swirling around. And that's when you gravitate towards, that's when you make the decision on which platform are you going to show up as to tell the answers to the questions that they already have. Which platform are you going to show up on to connect with them in and intersect their already everyday experiences, that the platforms they're already on. You don't need to like train somebody that they have to follow you on Instagram in order to understand your content. Like if they're on Twitter and not Instagram, by all means, do all of your marketing on Twitter, right? So that's my first piece of advice is not necessarily jumping into, okay, I'm starting a new brand. That means I need to start an Instagram, because that's not always the case. Sometimes you can, in fact, a lot of my side businesses, I never even marketed it on Instagram or on social media. It was all about connecting person-to-person experiences, word of mouth, posting on LinkedIn, emailing specific people. Like marketing comes in all shapes and sizes. It's all about who's on the other side of the screen and how do you intersect them. In terms of Instagram specifically, once you get to the decision that, okay, Instagram is the right platform for me, what makes Instagram so powerful is it is a platform to connect people to people at scale. And so if you can show up as your authentic self and literally connect person to person via Instagram stories, Instagram posts, that connection is extended to your entire audience. And you do not need, I think, I can't claim this for my own, but this is a quote that I learned from a friend, is followers does not always equal customers. And so it doesn't actually matter that you get hundreds of thousands of followers on Instagram. It matters that you get the right ones. And so you can have 100 listeners that all follow you on Instagram, and that's your 100 listeners. They're so engaged. They live for everything that you post. Your engagement rate on Instagram is going to be through the roof, because the people that really care about you are following and are engaging with you because they care about you, and you know them so well because of all the work that you've done behind the scenes. So always, I mean, show up on stories. Show up as yourself on stories. Share posts. I think of posts as kind of like the sacred gallery where if somebody shows up to your page, and they want to know who you are, what you're about, how you're helping the world, what you care about, they can figure that out in those first nine grid, you know? And so care about that. Don't just post just to post. Really put out content that really matters to you. Stories only last 24 hours. And that's where you can get casual. That's where you can get real and authentic and engaged. Not that you can't do that in posts, but you know what I mean. It's easier, it's quick, it's easy to edit and kind of like capture your everyday experiences. Instagram also rewards you if you use the tools that they've given you. And the way that you can do that is on stories using all the things. So questions, polls, slider things, whatever it looks like. I mean, get people engaged and work. That's why you always see these bloggers that are like, comment smiley face if you're having a great day, you know, at the end of their post. That's why they're doing that, because Instagram is going to reward them because they have a lot of comments on their post. Instagram also rewards you if you keep people on their app. And so that's why gallery posts work really well on Instagram. That's why, because they want you to keep swiping. That's why when you post a story often throughout the day, people want to keep coming back to the Instagram app to check your story. And so you don't need to be posting every single hour of the day, but don't just post once. in the morning. Post like often throughout the day, or have things planned to post. I could keep going, but those are probably my top tips if you're starting out.
So what about LinkedIn? I know you've had a lot of success on there too. Are the tips the same or are they different?
LinkedIn is hard to crack. I think that there are definitely people who I know and who I'm well connected with whose specialty is LinkedIn. Like their job is to write and build and nurture personal brands for thought leaders on LinkedIn. So I'm honestly probably not the expert in that space. What I would say about LinkedIn is it's a professional platform, right? It's a professional network. People are going to LinkedIn as their professional identity, and they're looking for other professionals to share with them information, stories, trends, news. And so if you can show up on LinkedIn and talk about things that make you feel professional, make you feel like an expert, and help you stand out as a thought leader, and get other people excited about what they're learning from you on LinkedIn, your posts will do really well, and you will connect well with people on LinkedIn. I also am not afraid to ask people that seem like stretch connections to connect with me. I mean, the amount of people that I deem in my head is kind of a celebrity or kind of like a major thought leader that I'm actually connected with, like an everyday person on LinkedIn, to me is really powerful, because then anything I'm posting or they're posting, I can see, they can see, we can engage together. And that's actually proved really fruitful for me. I feel like I've connected really well with people that are leaders in their niche because I'm just active on LinkedIn. I like their stuff. I engage with them. Yeah, those are probably my
on
tips.
On that note, actually, I was really inspired by you on that too. Like this weekend, I sat down and messaged on LinkedIn and requested to connect with a variety of people that I would not have thought to connect with, because they were like a third degree connection or something like that. And all I did was say hey, I want to learn more about your entrepreneurial journey. I'm interested in your project, or I'm interested in what you're doing. Do you want to set up some time to chat? The success rate was incredible. I think specifically because it's COVID and everyone's at home and on their computer, people are really willing to schedule time to chat. I really encourage people to go out of their comfort zones there. The success rate is actually surprisingly high.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't say anything special. I just said, I just want to learn it from you. And let's set up some time to chat. And they were totally down. So.
And that's what it's about, right? It's I want to learn from you. I'm so eager and so curious about what you're doing. Can I please connect with you? Also being on the other side of that, I mean, I am literally 1 year into my career and I'm already getting people younger than me trying to connect, trying to learn from me, trying to network with me. And on the other side of that, I mean, if you come at that conversation with hey, I was really inspired by your journey because of XYZ reasons, or I found your profile through XYZ avenues. I saw you speak here, whatever it is, that kind of point of connection. And then who you are. This is where I'm at in my career. This is where I'm at in college. This is what I'm interested in. Please let me know if you have 10, 15 minutes to hop on the phone and talk, or if I can send you some questions to respond to here. That literally always works for me. Maybe I'm just too charismatic and I connect people too much. But I mean,
that might be my problem too.
I will never say no to that. I think what's interesting, I've actually seen it done really, really poorly as well. I've had people that have connected with me and have said hi, I'm really interested in kind of the program that you were at your current company, would love to pick your brain. And I would share oh, okay, that's great. I don't really have time right now. Can we chat in a week? Or, oh, okay, I'm really glad to hear that. A lot of things with my program are changing. So just so you know, it's not going to be the same experience for you, but happy to chat, happy to still kind of talk through your career. And people will literally be oh no, never mind. Or oh no, it's okay. And I'm are you okay? Never mind then. Good God. I'm not going to connect with you. I'm not going to give you I mean, it took time for me to respond to those people in the first place. So I think it's also out of respect, just kind of respect where everybody's at, whether or not they respond.
Yeah, I think follow through is crucial there. In terms of moving forward with your brand and engaging with your listeners and engaging with your potential customers, do you have any tips there on how to have an authentic relationship with anyone who's using your product?
I mean, at the end of the day, you have to just adore your customers. I mean, readers, listeners, whatever that word is, right? Like, those people trust you. Those people have given you time out of their day, sometimes money, sometimes massive investments. Sometimes they are brand evangelists. Maybe they're talking about you without you even having to ask, and like sharing about things that you're doing that they're really connected with. I mean, that is such a gift and such a service to you and your brand and your business. If you can't love and adore and thank genuinely the like 10 people that are supporting you now, you're toast as you grow. You won't grow, because like if those people now can tell that you already think you're better than them, or you don't have time in your day to respond to their DMs on Instagram, like, you are not going to be able to scale to hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands customers and engaged readers or listeners, because people are not going to feel connected with you, and they're going to think that you have an agenda other than to serve them, which is not your agenda, should not be your agenda. So, I mean, I am always, it does not matter what you say. It does not matter whether you have never messaged me before or if you message me every single day. I'm always responding to every DM, every comment. Like, I have the time to do that. I am not an influencer that like doesn't have time to like read through all of her DMs or whatever influencers say. Like, no. Do I have to sometimes back to work and like wait to respond until the end of the day because I get somewhat of an influx? Yes, but I'm always responding and engaging with those people. I think that really matters. It's just about gratitude for the people that you have now. Because if you can't have gratitude for the little things, there's no way you're going to have gratitude for the big ones.
Absolutely. And something I was also discussing earlier this week with another conversation, I don't remember exactly when, was when you're reaching out for sponsorships or partnerships or any kind of collaboration with other companies, for any initiative that you have, it's best to reach out with a more personal conversation and reach out saying, I love your brand. I feel like we have a unique vision that we align on. I'd love to learn more about how we can collaborate, and mainly position it like you're benefiting the users and the customers, because that's truly what you guys are doing at the end of the day. Even if later on the way that you end up collaborating maybe is a financial collaboration or a product collaboration, at the end of the day, the goal of the partnership is to aid the customer and the user. And I think that's something that every business owner or business starter or anyone needs to keep in mind, because at the end of the day, sometimes it feels like conversations are of a financial nature, but they should always be about the user and the customer.
Yeah. It is interesting to think about like relationships as transactional, or like what does collaboration look like when it's coming through like to reach business outcomes. Like, that's something I've been thinking about. Yeah, for sure. But I mean, I'm not at the point where I'm like dealing with like major partnerships or major sponsors or anything like that. And so for the time being, yes, if it's coming from a place of like, you and I are both trying to serve the same people, let's do it together. I would assume that would prove really valuable.
So on this podcast, we also love talking about just ways that we can improve the market and ideate on how the world could be a different and more beautiful place. So I know that there are so many young professionals in the world who are seeking inspiration and guidance. So I'd love to know kind of any ideas you have on how we can further connect this group of people and move this market forward, because I love your podcast. So I want to know what you might be coming up with next, because it's just so exciting.
Oh my gosh. I love it too.
Oh yeah?
I mean, I have a few different business products, revenue generating ideas in terms of like how I can continue to fuel the mission forward. I heard a business strategist say this on Instagram too. They're like, so many people these days want to be bloggers or just like creative and just kind of like start all these ideas and just really help people. They don't want to worry about the business part. Like, they just want to help people and just do it creatively. But every business needs to have the infrastructure, the system, the fuel that keeps the engine going. And there's actually a lot of really inspiring people and inspiring brands and missions that started with let's start a business. Let's kind of start that revenue generating kind of machine. And as we go, we will continue to be our authentic brand. We will continue to have great leaders leading us forward. And when we get to a point where we can be motivating people and also like be fulfilling whatever we need to fulfill to keep going, it's going to be dramatically better, just all around. Like you can sustain, you can stay, you can continue inspiring people because you're not overwhelmed in the stress of how you're going to make money as you do it. I have the great experience and opportunity of having a full-time job and being a full-time side hustler as well. And so I can kind of rely on my 9-to-5 experience, if you will, as that fuel for now. But I'm also thinking about like, what can I do to kind of keep this going? So some ideas, and I guess you could tell me which one you want to explore, but we've thought about like digital downloads, courses, webinars, workshops, maybe even like a virtual conference at some point kind of down the line. Like how do we scale and monetize our community in a way that's really authentic and like continues to serve them, but they feel invested in their own journey. I think if you pay to be a part of an experience, you're automatically more invested in whatever outcome you get from that experience. And so that's kind of one avenue. That'd be like the Passages project. Obviously also thinking about like sponsors or brand partners or whatever, but that's kind of like another pillar. And then personally, because I live for it and I have the time, I've started a side hustle to fuel my side hustle, which is coaching. And I'm calling it empowerment coaching because I've never seen that as a coaching practice. And I'm basically trying to step into who I would have wanted to hire and who I would have wanted to work with like 2.5 years ago when I was knee deep in multi-passionate chaos and would have like 50 tabs open in my brain of all these different creative ideas I wanted to do. I would fill my schedule, fill my time with working on the things that I felt passionate about, only to then spend more time studying and working towards a degree that I felt like the two clashed. And I want to basically be the coach to help people understand like that individuality is divine and important, and you need to continue doing it. And also, here's how you could do it in a really sustainable way. If you're looking for a career path that pulls those passions in, let's talk about that. Let's see how to compartmentalize what you love about what you do and how you can build that into a career. If you're a side hustler, like how can we build a side hustle? How can I help you like see that that's actually possible? It kind of spans a range of problems and a range of people. But so far it's been really fun, and I'm trying to think of ways to kind of like scale that. So those are all my ideas.
I'm so intrigued by that second one, although I think we should discuss both. What kind of guidance do you give your mentees to cultivate their inherent creative souls?
Oh my gosh, it's so much fun. And at some point, I really want to actually do some sort of certification or course to help me understand like the art of coaching and how to be a really, really great coach. For now, I'm just tapping into my intuition and trying to do what feels really true to me and what I feel like I would want to do if I was on, again, the other side of the screen. So right now, what it looks like is I send everybody a prep form before we talk, and people can book for either an hour or 30 minutes. Through all of the experiences of people I've worked with so far, I've learned that 30 minutes is just not enough. And so I think I'm only going to stick to an hour, but I'm going to do it for less people so that I can really give my all to every single session. But I send them a prep form and basically ask questions like, what are you currently struggling with? Where do you really want to be in 6 months? Do you feel ready to get there? What's holding you back? And basically, is there anything else? And I just kind of ask, like, where are you at? Where do you want to go in the near future? Do you feel ready? How can we help you get there? Let's chat. And then I basically absorb what they've said. I take some notes on kind of like, okay, these are the pillars that really spoke to them when they were thinking through this exercise. So if we don't know what to talk about on the actual coaching call, we'll just go to one of those things and kind of think through it. And I start to kind of brainstorm, okay, if I was just gonna have read this form and give you advice, here's what I would say. But then during the actual call, I share a little bit of my story because I think that's helpful just to give context for like, why me? why do I want to be a coach? All of this stuff. And then I basically pass the mic to them and I'm like, I think that stories can heal even when you're telling them. And so I want to give you as much time as you need to tell your story. Tell me exhaust yourself of everything that's running through your brain and everything you're really struggling with. Some people start with, yeah, a month ago I had this idea and this is what I'm thinking. This is really what I want to do. And this is what I really want to focus on. Some people are like, yeah, so as a child, this is like who I was and everything about me and everything about my family and everything about my hobbies. I mean, it feels like a therapy session almost, like, and I give the disclaimer, like, I am not a professional counselor. This is not counseling. But it's, you know, sometimes that's what people really want to share. And through that story, as they tell it to me, I take notes ravenously. I mean, I think that is a gift that I did not think I was going to have to bring into my professional career, but to be able to type and to be able to write really, really fast has proved so valuable in the things that I'm interested in, because I essentially transcribe what they're saying as they're saying it. I almost like write down their story as they're telling it to me. But every time they say something and a question pops into my head, or an idea, or something to like coach them through, something that I've already learned that I can sense that they don't know yet, piece of advice, whatever it is, I'll kind of like make a star, draw an arrow, write my little note, and keep going. And usually that kind of lasts like kind of a while, you know, like maybe like 10 minutes or a while. People love to tell their stories. And then we'll take a breath and I'll basically go back through it. And I'm like, okay, this really stood out to me, and here's why. I can tell that this is who you are. This is what you value. This is what you're motivated by. And here's why I picked that out. And it's a combination of like positive affirmation and telling them like, here's who I can tell that you are, and that is enough. That is good. Let's talk about that. Let's own that. I think there's a lot of power in that, because a lot of people would be like, oh my gosh, like you articulated what I've always tried to articulate about myself. And then the other half is this like kind of coach, you know, like advice, like, okay, you have negative limiting beliefs and they're holding you back, and here are 3 ways you can move through them. Or you are drowning in your productivity. Here are my tips on how to manage your calendar. You're drowning in budgeting and managing your personal finance. Here's my tips. Here's what empowerment and living into your passion really means. Here's how I would coach you through sticking up to somebody, or working on an idea, or connecting the dots in the things that you think you're interested in but can't see a clear path forward. And the end goal kind of varies, which is something that I think is holding me back from being able to scale the coaching services into more of a program or more of a package, because I'm still trying to figure out like, what is that end goal? Like, how are people leaving? Like, what am I trying to get you to? What is the end result? And how can I like reverse engineer and coach you through that? Some people say like, okay, now I feel aligned. Like, I feel like I know where to fuel my interests. I know what I need to focus on now. I like this idea, but I'm going to focus on this one now. For some people, I've always known I wanted to work on this idea. I was just too scared. And now I'm not scared at all. And and here I go. Watch out, world. For some people, it's just really tactical tips. It's like, you know, decluttering your mind, decluttering your life. I share a lot of similar advice across different people, and they gravitate towards different things, which I think is really fascinating to kind of witness. After the session, I basically type up all the notes that I took and put it into an action plan, which is a fancy way for saying I type it into Google Slides. And I share everything that I learned from our session. I give that back to them. I give them 55 and growing list of journaling prompts, so that they can continue unlocking like what's holding them back, who they are, what they really want. I give them the video recording of our session and a feedback form. And that feedback form is priceless. Let me tell you, getting to learn like, how can I make this experience even better the next time? What was your biggest takeaway? Do you feel like we didn't get to cover anything? Was this effective in helping you reach your goals? That has been really, really motivating.
I love that. I mean, what's so interesting about that is usually I find that coaching involves gaining specific skills, but this approach is more personal, going deeper inside, figuring out what motivates them, what is holding them back. And I think that applies a lot to our current listeners, because entrepreneurship is a very vulnerable thing to do. It's very scary to put yourself out there, even to validate an idea. What guidance do you maybe have for someone who's maybe afraid to go out and ask people if they would use their product or even do user research in case of getting put down or feeling, I guess, silly, or like they're afraid of failure, I guess. Do you have any advice for someone like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, basically me. I'm describing me at this point. Let's just own up to it.
So, oh man, where do we start? My biggest advice, and I took this from UX. I have my degree and experience is really rooted in kind of UX design, computing, psychology, consumer behavior. Your job is to understand the problem so deeply before you even touch thinking about the solution. And nobody is going to say no to you if you ask, can I talk with you about this problem? Can I talk to you about who you are and your everyday experience? I don't know what a solution would look like. I don't know really what this is going to look like, but I care a lot about you. I care a lot about this problem. And I want to make sure that I'm building something that actually solves the problem. I've just come across too many projects, entrepreneurial endeavors. So for background, I've interned at a startup, co-working space, digital agency, entrepreneurship, started an entrepreneurship community. I mean, I have like soaked myself in entrepreneurship and the entrepreneurial persona. And there is this just persistent problem. It gets me so fired up where people just say, here's a problem. I have the solution. I already know. This is the solution. I have it. It's good to go. I'm the winner. This is going to be $1 million idea.
A self-proclaimed winner.
That self-proclaimed, I mean, call it like, I don't know what to call it, but I need to come up with a name for it because it gets me so mad. But yeah, these like entrepreneurs that have such good intentions, like really truly want to solve a problem, want to help people, like want to be an entrepreneur. They know that that's like what they were put on this earth to go do, and they feel really inspired by entrepreneurship and the grit and the hustle that comes from solving a problem that nobody has solved before. I mean, that takes a particular type of pioneer, but they jump straight to the solution. And I think that's why a lot of entrepreneurs fail. That's why a lot of the statistics are so low or are so terrifying to look at, or the fear of rejection is so prominent, of why pitch competitions are so terrifying. Like, because if you're getting up on stage and you're like, I think that I have this solution to this problem, and I just hope that you believe me, you know, and here's a random stat that I found on the internet. And I've asked like one friend and they think that it's a really good idea, therefore it is, you know, like that kind of like assumption-based confidence is just, that is going to drain you. And so to be fearful of rejection coming from that place is really going to diminish your self-agency. And so the next time you try to start a project, you're going to feel more afraid than you were last time because that solution was not right. But it wasn't that you were wrong. It was that you didn't take the time and space and people and research that you needed to really, really understand the problem. And so there's this principle in design thinking where you basically take one problem and you, like, if you imagine like a diamond, you go like out, 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 out. Like you start from one point and you just brainstorm. So you learn so much about the problem. You come up with 75 other problems based on that problem. And then you start to come back in and you really start to nail down, what is the problem? Like, what is the root of what I thought I was trying to solve? I think there's a really good example that it's like in design textbooks where somebody is in a library or a bookstore and they're trying to reach for a book. And you're like, what is this person's goal? And so, or like, what does this person need? You know, like, what is this person trying to do? And you ask design students, and you know, early design students are gonna be like, oh, well, clearly, like they need a ladder. Like they need a step stool. Like that's what they need. That's what the picture's missing. And then another person is gonna say like, oh, they need somebody taller to come get the book for them. Another person will say like, their goal is to just get the book in their hands. Another person is going to say like their goal is to read material. Another person is going to say their goal is to be smart, you know, intellectual, and feel that about themselves. It's this spectrum of desires, of needs, of wants, of like driving motivational forces that move somebody to take an action. And in design thinking, that's a really important principle. And in entrepreneurship, it's a really important principle because you need to know what the root of the problem is before you even start to think about the solution. And the solution is the exact same process. You start with like one idea, you brainstorm 75, you start to test them and whittle it down and talk to people and test it and test it again. And you get to the solution. And then you can feel really confident. That was a lot. One other thing I'll say is fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of whatever, assuming you've done the hard work, everything I just said, and now you're on stage at the pitch competition and you're like, I am literally so terrified. Like, I believe wholeheartedly in this. I know that this is going to work. I know that I care so much about the solution and these people, but also I'm terrified. My hands are shaking. Fear is your ticket to ride. Any successful person, any person that has really put themselves out there, taken a risk, built something that's really incredible, I guarantee they have had to do it with shaking hands. You feel the fear and you do it anyway. If you don't have fear with you, you're not stepping into a bold enough solution. You're not stepping into a bold enough life. You're not stepping into your truest, most authentic self because it is a risk. It's always a risk. Somebody out there is going to agree with you. Somebody out there is going to disagree with you. And so if you're playing it safe, you're never going to build that solution that you know that you're capable of. But if you think of fear of rejection, fear of whatever, as your ticket, if you have that, it means you must continue. You have to step forward. You have to share your story. You have to build what you're thinking about building. That's how things happen.
Oh my God, Chloe, you're incredible. I hope you know that because you're incredible.
I get really amped about this stuff.
On that note, I think we should wrap it up. Any last words to inspire our audience to create the next amazing business and solve all the world's problems?
I think what I've learned through my journey, if you will, as a side hustler, don't work on something that you don't love, which is very cheesy, but I'll say it anyways. Because the amount of work that you cannot anticipate, the rejection that we just talked about, all that fear stuff, all the messy problems that you're going to have to solve, if you don't continuously feel anchored to your why or obsessed with your people, obsessed with solving your problems, you will be burnt out. You will not feel motivation to figure out how to not be burnt out. I mean, it's a domino effect. So work on something that you're extraordinarily passionate about that you know is going to bring good into the world. My other piece of advice that I don't hear shared often is it's okay to let it go. There are so many projects that I have worked on that I have put my heart and soul into. And as things started to get rolling, it's that like gut feeling, that like little intuitive muscle that's like, I really don't want to do this. Like, this isn't inspiring to me. I don't see myself working on this long term. I don't think I picked the right teammates, like whatever it is, like something's just like not working. Don't be afraid to let it go, because then it's going to free you up. And you're only ever going to learn. It's only ever going to be a win-win if you let things go and let them be, let the idea float to the next person that can possibly take it on. Yeah, that'd be my advice.
Thank you so much, Chloe. It's been amazing having you on. Everyone, go listen to Chloe's podcast, the Passages podcast. I've linked it down below. Follow all her socials, also linked down below. She's an incredible motivator, and she's sharing stories from young professionals. And it's been an amazing experience knowing her, and she's a great person. So you should all go support her.
Ashwini, you're the best. You're the best. Go Jackets. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, yes, go Jackets. Thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode. I hope you loved our conversation as much as I did. If you enjoy these conversations, please be sure to follow the Pixie Dust podcast and tune in next week for our next episode.